Mail call. We are diving into the mailbag today. It's Mr. Dave Brown and Brandon. We're going to take a look at the questions that you submitted via Twitter and or email. We're going to have a whole heap of fun. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And joining me across cyberspace is Mr. Dave Brown. What up?
Hi, Brandon. Hello, Twins fans. It's mailbag time.
And as prepared as I usually am, I had to print out my format here as we were speaking. So we're doing a little on-air juggling. But I am your host, Brandon Warren. As I said, you can unfollow me on the tweets, on the Twixer at Brandon_WARNE. I would highly recommend following Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown. And we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also on YouTube with our live premieres. We love to hear from you. Hit like, hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up. All that good stuff. Today's episode brought to you by Locked On Twins. And it's also, today's episode of Locked On Twins is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Because did you know it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get the help of a team of licensed tax professionals. Just call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon or check the bottom of this, whether you're listening or watching. We have a link for you to click. Super duper easy. Dave, we are diving into the mailbag. Are you ready?
I'm ready to dive, although it says there's a sign here that says no diving. So we're going to break the law.
Yeah, break the law, break the rules, hopefully not break anything else. Let's see here. Andrew Woodard wants to know if Edouard Julien is ever going to rule again. No, is he trade bait with Brooks Lee on the brink of an everyday role? Now, as we're recording, Brooks Lee has hit another home run and is just absolutely crushing it at AAA. Whether he'll play second, third, I don't know. I mean, DH, there's a lot of options, but it does feel as though his promotion could be imminent. A lot of times it takes two to tango and they're going to need a roster spot. But will that come at the expense of Edouard Julien? Because for me, before I let you dive in, I don't like the idea of trading a guy when he's been playing, let's just say, not as well as he has in the past.
Well, you don't want to trade a guy when you don't want to sell low. I think that the phrase is we've got to get the Twins AAA staff's got to get him playing kind of how he was before. And I think recently Julian's numbers have improved down at St. Paul. So I don't know if he's worked out all the kinks or the bugs or the whatevers. Brooks Lee does have the athleticism to possibly play other positions as well. Julien could also play first base. There is no Montreal Expos franchise right now, so I don't know if anybody is hot to trot to get an Edouard Julien. But considering how the Twins like their defensive, like their left-handed hitters, and not all of them are really. Larnach's not hitting. Kirilloff is hurt and not hitting. Kepler is kind of banged up and so forth. There might be room in the Twins universe for both players. So I don't foresee a trade of Edouard Julien at this time, but stranger things have happened.
Yes, multiple seasons of Stranger Things, that is. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to make that move. I think, even though I was actually just texting with a friend about, he said, is Brooks Lee the greatest player to ever walk through AAA? And I said, honestly, this offensive prospect list is pretty dang loaded. I mean, even Aaron Sabato's starting to turn things around. They did release Keone Kabako, so it's not all coming up all Millhouse, but Gabriel Gonzalez is making his way back from back issues. That's what Lee had. Emanuel Rodriguez doing his thing. I like where these offensive prospects are going, but I think if they're, let's roll this into the next question, because Aaron on Twitter said, how hard should they go at the deadline, as in all in trading Emanuel Rodriguez, Walker Jenkins, Brooks Lee, maybe the next tier down, the Keishel, Festa. We have a full episode on Festa coming out here in the morning, so make sure that you're prepared for that. Or should they just stand firm and maybe just kind of fill in the gaps with a back-end starter and an interesting reliever, right-handed bat like Miguel Andujar, who I suggested in our most recent episode. I think the emergence of guys like Festa is good to see because they traded, Cade Povich. They traded, who was the guy that went to Cincinnati and now is back in Cleveland?
Lively?
What's that?
Ben Lively? That's not good.
No. Like Sawyer Gibson-Long got traded to the Tigers. He's been big leagues in the periphery of it. I'll remember his name probably 3 a.m. while I'm sleeping because
be sure to wake me up because I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. So, what they've done is they've turned these pop-up guys into players coming back, big league type players. If you can be convinced that you can create more of those guys, like your Festas and all that, it does allow you to trade some of those guys. And I think that shouldn't be slept on as a plus for this front office. And so I think they could, in theory, trade from prospect depth and still get some things done and still have a farm system that's pretty dang good and can supplement this roster.
I definitely don't see this organization trading its best prospects.
Right.
I don't see that as something that's about to happen. I would be pleased if they traded some of their decent prospects for help for this year. I'm not even sure they're going to do that. So, I think I'm not saying it's like up to David Festa to not save the season, but is David Festa going to be your big mid-season pitching acquisition? It might be. That could end up being what happens. So that's a little scary, but I think it's more likely that it would be something like that, along with a supplemental move of maybe one of the lesser players. I'd still like to see them get another offensive player, a right-handed hitter. Brooks Lee's a switch hitter, is he not? So that's half of a right-handed hitter, but. So I still think they could use a little boost there. And not all of their left-handed hitters, as we mentioned before, have been chugging along. So the team, they're far out of first place, but not far out of the playoffs. They still could use a few items, a few boosts to the roster.
Steven Hajjar, Hajjar is who I was thinking of. Don't check his numbers if you are concerned about what he's giving the Guardians farm system right now, because I'm going to tell you, 5.73 ERA, 9.8 strikeouts per 9, 7.8 walks per 9. So it has not been
pretty jarring.
And it when is a door not a door when it is Hajjar? That's probably the worst joke you'll ever hear.
I'm not surprised if so that it comes from you.
Yeah, right. Well, hey, let's do this. Let's take a quick pause. When we come back, we will answer some more of these questions. We've got questions about David Festa, trade targets, relief pitching, Austin Martin, all that and more. It's we're going to dive into it. But let's take a quick break. Passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships and also what keep your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, whether you want a supercharger, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, or whatever else you need. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part will fit, your pit will fit your ride every single time, no matter what, or you get your money back because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home big W's. So keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply, and eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. And let's give some love to our friends at LinkedIn. If you're struggling to close deals because B2B selling is tougher than ever, we want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers who are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you, easy for me to say, to unlock conversations with people who matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial. It's almost 2 months at linkedin.com/lockedon. Again, linkedin.com/lockedon, 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. All right, let's let the good times roll. Dave Brown. Tom, our friend from email, sent this in. Wants to know what are fair expectations for David Festa. We did and do have a full episode coming with that exact information with Theo Tollefson. But with that said, what are your expectations? I know you've been a little curious about his innings count and a little curious about a couple other things, but I want to hear what you got to say.
How many starts are left in the season? Maybe 15 turns in the rotation. I think a fair expectation is that he will make 15 starts for the Twins this season.
Wow, you're ambitious.
I think, what does that mean? That it doesn't pin me down to like specific statistics, but it means that he is not replaced in the rotation. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't go back to the minors. He doesn't go to the bullpen. If he makes 15 starts for the Twins, that means he's had an excellent season. And I think that is reasonable to hope for and the best you could hope for at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, the innings count is going to be interesting. He's only thrown 100 innings once. He did approach 100 innings last year, but he is quickly approaching 60 innings now, and we're at or near the midpoint of the season. So you project that out, and it's 120. Not that big of a leap if you were to get to that number. And ideally, those last 60 innings, if they're in the big leagues, it'll be because he earned it. So that's a good thing. And I'll be curious to see if that happens, what happens with Chris Paddock and what happens with the rest of the rotation. Because, Simeon Woods Richardson, who is starting for the Twins in Arizona this evening, he's not regression proof. Nobody is, especially not rookies, though. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Mr. Festa. You ready for another one?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is an interesting one from Cody Arnold on Twitter. He said he's curious how creative teams are allowed to get with trades and contracts. Like, can you trade for the rest of a season and retain future rights options to a player and just don't? Now, what I think he means is if you trade for players who have like team option, mutual option, that sort of thing. Basically, those come within the trade. That's kind of what I think he's asking.
Part of their person, almost.
Yeah. I think there's certain things you can pre-negotiate, because I also know some players are like, listen, I'll waive my no trade if you sign me to an extension. I'm watching that Yankees documentary on Peacock. I don't know if you've been watching it, but it's really good. And Dave Winfield got an extension with the Angels as a contingency to his waiving his no trade to be sent to the Angels from the Yankees. And that whole thing with him and George Steinbrenner was pretty crazy. But the creativity is pretty much limited by your own imagination. And I think there's also, probably not going to be incentives based on certain things teams can easily manipulate. But with that said, if you can imagine it, it's probably an option.
Well, you brought up a good point. I think some of the contingencies have to be in the player's contract in the first place. That's one thing that, you can't make something up after the fact. So, if a player has something like that in their contract, then you can get kind of creative with the compensation. One thing you'll see when you see things like future, not cash considerations, that's been done to death, but when you see future considerations, that usually means there's a list of 4 or 5 players that a player might be traded for down the line, and it depends on the results that the team with the known player gets. And then they say, well, if he hits these mileposts, then it's this player. If he hits these, then it's another player. So I think that's where a lot of the creativity doesn't necessarily get down. We're not talking about details within each player, but what kind of player you get back in a trade can depend on what parameters you set as GMs, as trading partners, when the trade is made. So that's one thing to think about.
Now, I want to say there was a time when someone made a trade with the Rangers where it was pick one player or another, and Alfonso Soriano was the player who wasn't picked, but I'm not sure that I'm remembering that correctly. Or maybe it was Robinson Cano instead of Joaquin Arias in the A-Rod trade. I can't remember for sure, but yeah, there are certain times those things get leaked out where 2 players or 3 players or however many you could choose from, you pick one of them and it doesn't go as well as it could have. And also, too, there was the Trey Turner player to be named where they were just waiting for him to reach that 1 year in the organization before he could be flipped in a trade, and that loophole got closed. And also, too, with Winfield, it was 10-5 rights. He didn't have a no-trade clause in 1992 or whatever it was, or 91, I think, or 90. I think it was actually 90. He did not have a no-trade clause because of negotiated in his deal. It was because he was a 10-5 player, which means 10 years in the bigs, 5 years with the same team. So he could nix any deal, and many, many times he did exactly that.
Yeah, but he couldn't nix a deal to the Knicks, even though he did play basketball too. He was one of those multi-sport athletes. So, but if the Angels had decided to trade it to the New York Knicks, then there's nothing he could do about it.
That would have gotten a little strange. Yeah. Hey, Mark from email sent us this one. I'm a big Austin Martin fan. How would you grade his rookie season? Now, Baseball Reference, not super in love with Austin Martin. I'm looking up Fangraphs just because I want to get a look for it. But the last I saw with Martin on Baseball Reference was a minus 0.2. Fangraphs has him at 0.0, basically 106 weighted runs created plus, but negative defensive value. The way that I would adjust is he's being asked to play a lot of positions that he's not played extensively. I mean, this is a guy who was drafted as a shortstop and will probably never play more than a couple innings in the big leagues at short, if even that. So to me, the fact that he's carrying a better than average weighted runs created plus, striking out 18% of the time, walking about half that, I think he's been helpful. He's been a net positive for this team.
If you look at how Willie Castro is playing when they've asked him to do things all over the diamond, and you look at his career and see how he was with the Lions, with the Tigers at one time. He was in the Lions, and if Dave Winfield was with the Knicks, let me tell you, this would be a much different podcast.
Scott Paddock.
Well, Scott Paddock is he's a very good center on my freshman football team. Have I talked about that before?
The pivot.
But asking Willie Castro to play all over the diamond doesn't necessarily do great things for maybe his rankings at certain positions, but right. He's been an invaluable part of how Rocco fills out a lineup card because he's been so versatile. I'm not saying that that's what they've done with Austin Martin, but as a rookie, it's kind of hard to expect him to have the same kind of results that someone like Willie Castro has had with similar asks. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't have that kind of experience. So I take that into account when I see his numbers are not great, or maybe he's not hitting as well as we had hoped. He's been a useful player, a helpful player, a bench player. It's a good thing, I guess, for now that they don't have to have him play absolutely every day, but he is a helpful guy to have on the roster. So I would give him maybe an incomplete right now if we're giving out grades again. Oh, no, we're back to giving out grades. I missed the assignment. But I do, he made that really nice leaping catch the other day to save some runs. And I see what they see in him, generally speaking. So let's continue to have patience with him. And especially if we're going to be asking him to do a lot of different things, which is what they're doing.
No question about it. Well, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. It's called Locked On Sports Today, and it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with your local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a few more questions. We've got one about your favorite hitting and pitching prospects, and also might get into some trade targets. We're about a month from the trade deadline, so we'll do all that. But again, first, a quick break. PrizePicks is America's number one daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's easy and exciting because it's just you and the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. With as few as 4 correct picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 because they have multipliers, sometimes as high as 100 times. So again, it's going to come down to risk. It's going to come down to reward. Give it a shot. Get in on the daily action with your friends today and become part of the PrizePicks community. With the finals over, hoops are still going on, whether you like the WNBA rookies like Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, or if you want to go with some more established stars like Brianna Stewart or our very own Nafisa Collier, you can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out in the WNBA. So I would highly recommend giving that a shot, especially if you still got that itch for your basketball fix. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states too, so give them a look and see if you can play wherever you are located. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. It's all one word for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks, and get that deposit matched up to $100 for the first time. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Dave, we're coming down the home stretch here. Let's give some love to Josiah. Wants to know who your favorite hitting and pitching prospects are. Let's do this. I want to say, let's eliminate. How should we do this? I say let's eliminate David Festa because he's about to debut, and let's eliminate Brooks Lee because he should be debuting soon as well. So if we had to go maybe a little further down the list, I think for me, Luke Keeschel has really, really come on for the Twins at second base. You know, he can play a little all over, but I think he has really rocketed up the Twins farm system rankings to where he's a helium bat. He's played at Cedar Rapids and Wichita, and he crushed Cedar Rapids for an OPS over 1,000. He's still swinging it pretty good at Wichita with a 393 on base, 845 OPS altogether. The strikeouts to walk ratio of 82 strikeouts to 62 walks while he's been in the minor league system is certainly something that I notice. I love seeing guys who take almost as many walks as strikeouts. He's also stolen 28 bases. So in the time he's been in the farm, which is parts of 3 seasons now. Actually, I think I'm mistaken. I think it's parts of 2 seasons now. Yes. So he can move a little bit. He can hit a little bit. And I think that would probably be my guy for top hitting and top pitching. I mean, I think I got to go with Corey Lewis because anytime you've got someone in your system who throws a knuckleball, it's a whole heap of fun. He's made 5 starts so far this season. Is on the comeback trail. He's now in Wichita, and he's also on that short inning plan. The 2 starts in Wichita have only totaled 7 innings. He has 9 strikeouts, just kind of doing his thing. I don't know. The idea of a guy who throws a knuckleball as part of a full repertoire. He also got a fastball, curveball, slider, and changeup. I don't know. To me, it's fun to have a guy like that in the organization. He may not have the pedigree of a Festa, even a Marco Raya, Charlie Soto, but if he gets the big leagues, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching him.
Who's going to catch this knuckleballer, Brandon? That's the trouble spot, isn't it?
You got to go get who was it? Doug Mirabelli, who had like that famous car ride across Boston to get him to town to catch Tim Wakefield that day.
Yeah, I don't know if Doug is available or if Vasquez, through some kind of osmosis, Red Sox osmosis.
Maybe. Red Sox osmosis.
Red Sox osmosis.
Just cram it together.
I'm going to think a second on this hitter who I'm supposed to enjoy, be excited about. I would say you're going to like this. I love the strides that one Zebulon Matthews has made.
Who doesn't love
season.
Zebby?
Ranked only the 19th best prospect in the organization by MLB.com. I think that's, he is 24. So
the update for him is going to be very good.
I'm very excited to see if this is going to translate into the majors. Just if for no other reason, how can you not be excited about having a guy named Zebby around?
Is that short for Zebulon, do you think?
A knuckleball. What's that?
I wonder if it's short for Zebulon because I'm not positive.
It is. You have it right. It is. He is a Zebulon.
Yeah.
Matthews. That is what it is short for. So I would shorten it too. I nicknamed that up myself. But he's, throwing hard and not walking anybody. And I haven't seen his latest starts, but the early line at AA was very encouraging. So that as far as the pitchers go, that's who I'm excited about.
Well, Lewis, Zebby, and CJ Culpepper, who right now is number 8. Again, I think they'll have an update where they kind of shuffle the deck a little bit. But those 3 guys were drafted between rounds 9 and 13. How's that for Diamonds in the Rough, all in the same draft?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Festa in the Festa show, in the Festa standalone show. But that's and to see those guys, to see an organization hit on those spots, it just goes to show you don't necessarily have to tank to get good players if you have good scouting, and the Twins appear to have that. So that's a great thing they have going for them. As far as hitters that I'm excited about Emanuel Rodriguez. He's Walker Jenkins might be have more athleticism and raw whatever at age 19, but as long as Emanuel Rodriguez makes good sliding decisions and doesn't like hurt his thumb and all that kind of stuff, little silly injuries. It's going to be interesting to see how his pitch selection repertoire translates to the majors. I always like a guy who'll take a walk, but he's got speed and he's got power as well. Good opposite field power. I'm excited about that young man as well, and look forward to seeing him in Minnesota for years to come.
Yeah, you can take a walk or you can take a hike. Last one we got is Devlin on Twitter wants to know the most realistic trade target and the pie in the sky one. Realistically, the Ralph or Jim Bowden, if you prefer, had a list of players in the Athletic today. Garrett Crochet, I don't see as an option for the Twins. Jack Flaherty, I don't know about him either. But Luis Severino is interesting to me in the number 3 spot for most likely starters to go. I also like Yusei Kikuchi, and I've always been a big fan of Jesus Luzardo, though I don't know how much he's going to help a team down the stretch. I know Craig Mish, who is one of the more in-depth, in-tune Marlins insiders, does not think they're going to trade him. But if you were not going to go crazy high, and I don't think they will, Yusei Kikuchi could work for me, as could Severino. Offensively, I don't think they're going to go big like a Pete Alonso. I think it is going to be more along the lines of that Andujar, or something like that. And again, to me, what's tricky is you have to find the spot for the guy to play. I know they have a need, but how do you shuffle the roster to get a guy like anyone? Where do they play? Who are they taking the spot of? Who are they blocking? all things that work themselves out, and that's why these guys make these decisions. But it's easier for me to see a starting pitcher than any other position.
As far as like a pie in the sky, a name, I've heard Verlander's name thrown around. He's hurt right now.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense. But of course, we'll see how well Festa does. I think we can assume that Pablo Lopez will continue to get right, and that Joe Ryan will continue to be right. And after that, I don't know the other spots. I think Simeon Woods Richardson is establishing himself as a guy that you can put out there every day. And I think if you had to start him in a postseason game, looking at last year where they had to start Dobnak, it isn't quite the same kind of roll of the dice. But I'd still like to see them, if they brought in a guy like Verlander, who's been there and done that, I think that would be the best kind of thing you could hope for. And Barrios is not, his contract isn't, that's not a good place to spend that money. And I don't know that Barrios is going to continue to have success like he has without the strikeouts. So, and hey, we mentioned Austin Martin. I think that could be a guy, that's a piece you can move. I think Austin Martin's spot on this team, the way it is structured now, might be handled better by another kind of maybe a right-handed Willie Castro. I know Willie's a switch hitter, but a guy that can do a lot of things, who's been around the block, rather than having a kid do some of those tasks that they're having Martin do. So I think maybe they could move him.
We're going to go slightly into overtime because there is one I want to ask you about. What about Kenley Jansen as Jawan Duran insurance?
Kenley Johnson. I love Kenley Johnson because he is from the Caribbean.
Curacao, right?
Yes. Sure. I don't see any. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Duran. I think he's run into a few bad moments, and there's nothing like wrong with him that time and evening things out isn't going to fix. In terms of results, I think the back of the bullpen is great. Could they use another guy out there? Maybe. I don't know if you can rely on Alcala or Varland. They might need one more.
Or
guy,
Stewart,
maybe a left-hander. If Theodore doesn't do it. I'm sorry, again.
You need Stewart or Topa to get healthy, and who knows what they're going to bring.
Oh, I'm not counting on that. I'm certainly not counting on Topa.
Right.
And I have my doubts about Brock Stewart staying healthy.
Yeah. But I mean, they did the list of relievers that Ralph put together: Tanner Scott, Yimi Garcia, Kenley Jansen, Tyler Rogers, the Taylor-Tyler connection that you love to have.
Is he which
righty
hand is he?
Righty, the Thunder from Down Under, and then Mason Miller, who I don't think he's going to get traded unless some team with two top 100 prospects goes bananas.
Yeah, I mean that's where Emanuel Rodriguez would cost him, probably.
No interest on my behalf there. So fun list. I'd say go check it out if you have a subscription. But that's all we got time for. It's Mr. Dave Brown signing off. It's Brandon Warren signing off, saying, hey, don't forget, we do have a David Festa episode dropping in the morning. But for now, again, we're signing off saying thank you so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Twins, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.